wrong uns. Yes, there wasn't supposed to be a live this evening, but I decided that because there's so much going on, I needed to just address the stuff that's going on. By the way, no hibiscus this evening. I'm out of the country. It's coffee, so it's very late where I am. It's a few hours ahead of UK time. And for those slackers who didn't keep an eye on what was going on, as in the live, they can go and Foxtrot Oscar, because I know normally we start with quite a few people. It may be 8 p.m. UK time, but it's a few hours ahead of that. It's very dark and it's very late where I am. Can't tell you where I am because obviously I'm an international man of mystery. I do things in the background that you have no knowledge of, and I can't really tell you. So this international man of mystery, this ding dong English bottle cap. Alan says, evening all, you wrong uns. Has Starmer, Reeves and Rayner? Yeah, we'll get to that. Paulie Galtieri. Oh, I was just thinking about you today. Hello, Adrian. Yeah, wrong un. Evening, Paulie. Good to see you. Peter Sadler. Evening, Adrian and chat. And Vix Tex. Ye old Winston. Samurai Cup. Oh, Samurai Cup. Good to see that you're in the body of the Kirk this evening. Now, remember, it's a broad church, the body of the Kirk, so everyone is welcome. Good evening, all. Mince pies have replaced Battenberg supply. Hold you know, I don't know what the last word is, because so technically I can't see a lot of your chat because I don't have my computer in front of me. This is all, I'm doing this all. Rusty Mouse says, don't bang your head on the projectiles in the background. Well, them, I know. Evening, Adrian in chat, says Manda Sky. Evening, Manda Sky. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. Now, please, before we get into the sermon, make sure that you've allowed space for people to budge up in the pews. It's pews wars every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. People trying to get in. Wow. 110. Right, before we start with this, because I'm going to tell you some stuff tonight that you've not had anywhere else. Chris Mundy, is that Starmer and Lammy behind you? Could be. Or have they got 1,000 bottles of baby oil? So tonight, we are going to talk about stuff. Who's that? Kathy Harper. Kathy, welcome to the body of the Kirk. Good evening, all. Evening, yeah, wrong in the field. I hope you've taken Alexa with you, Adrian. No, I've left her at home. She's a bloody nagger. So that's not Naga Manchetti, whatever she is, the BBC breakfast presenter. Yeah, PT Ham says, hey up, budge up you lot. Come on, I know that you're sort of, what can I say, a little broader in the beam as we get older, but your derriere should allow lots of people to get into the pews. Unless, of course, you want to pop into the confessional before I start my sermon. Yeah, utter wrong uns. So I will be able to look at all of your chat and replies. But this evening, we're not going to muck about. It's not going to be a long live this evening, but I'm drinking very strong coffee. Hi all, I thought there was no live tonight, says Pauline Makepeace. There wasn't, Pauline, but I missed you so much. Yeah, wrong un. I just thought, well, for continuity purposes, I will try and put a bit of a live together this evening. I have no notes. It's literally going to be off the cuff because you know me. You've known me long enough. There's nothing better than one off the cuff. Andy Turner says, evening, you lot. Turn the heating off. Oh, it's disappeared. So basically what happens is when you type stuff, Pauline says, too very much. Stuart says, you saved me being bored this evening, Rev. Oh, the irreverent Reverend never lets the parishioners down. Not quite sure how, but we tend to try and not. Morning, Adrian and all. Andy H. Andy, not the Andy H. Surely. Good morning. Are you? Hang on a second. Where am I? Oh, I'm somewhere in the distant mists of time. I'm about 3 hours ahead of you, so you can work that out for your own entertainment. Yeah, wrong. But Andy H, is it the Andy H I know from the 80s on Teesside? So tonight, you know that I always try and bring you stuff that... who's that, Marie? Hello, Adrian. Didn't realise wasn't going to be alive. Pauline Makepeace, I was fascinated by the Fayed doc about all the stuff and comments from security staff. And Tom Harney's, I didn't quite get that, so apologies, Tom. So tonight, before I welcome everyone and allow everyone to get their feet under the table, no legendary Battenbergers, I do apologise, simply because I'm away from my computer and I can't get access. God, blimey, it's a bit warm in here. And I'm not wearing these tonight, so that's how much you know that I'm literally winging it. We're going to talk about the Labour Party. I'm going to make a prediction. Now, you know what I'm like. I love making predictions because inevitably they all become correct. What, you thought that Keir Starmer was meant to be Prime Minister? Hadaway and shite, man. So we'll do that. We'll do Zoe Ball. Sacked her back in the 90s. She's not improved, in my view, of course. I might upset a few people by saying that. We'll talk about Anthony Joshua. Let's all laugh at AJ. He's from Watford. Where's Watford? Is that like Watford Gap? And then after Watford Gap, it's Scotland? Yeah, wrong. We'll also talk about Fayed, obviously, because I know loads of stuff. We'll talk about Diddy, because there is an important thing, as in, you know, Diddy, P, Puff, Daddy, P, Diddy, Widdy. Because there's a really important thing that a lot of people have missed. I haven't. And we'll also talk about the Middle East. And I'll make some predictions. Bring your own bottle sign on the door. Bring your own Battenberg. Brilliant, Stuart. The Jacobite really has been a week of nonsense. Oh, what? Diddy? And all those... I mean, legally, I've got to be very careful, but he's being charged. So we're getting the truth out of him. But I will tell you this, before we get anywhere near Diddy, I told you on these lives nearly a year ago about the brown stuff hitting the fan as far as P. Diddy was concerned. Do you ever keep up with what I tell you? I mean, I drop you little crumbs. I drop you little things that you can... Ooh, I say, what's Adrian saying this week? Amalia's in the body of the Kirk this evening. Welcome, Amalia. Had a day, just checking in to say hi, then I'm off. Oh. The man could get a complex, Amalia. You're not down the allotment, are you? Coffee is very nice. So I'm looking at, who's that? Kate Western, lovely. Great to have you in the body of the Kirk. Have you luxurious slice of Battenberg with that coffee? No, sadly, no Battenberg for me this evening. I'm trying to watch me blood sugars. Peter Sadler, do what? Diddy do. Tom Harney's 1,000 bottles of lube. Just exactly what was he lubing up? Justin Bieber? Remember, I told you that a year ago. Told you about the Labour Party a year ago. Is he scaring you yet? Oh, they're going to build all these bloody houses. It's accommodation for everyone, yeah. Not the English. How here, man? Get with the programme. It's for all the bloody incomers. Don't be silly, Adrian. What-o? I better finish this coffee off, otherwise I'll be buzzing my tits off by the end of this. Did I say that? Didn't see my lips move. Retro and his bikes is in the body of the Kirk. Ahoy there. Ahoy, sailors. Ahoy, Retro. Honestly, I'm trying to keep up with the messages and they just disappear. The Jacobite says, I'm only in my 20s and I can't name a single P. Diddy song. Can you? To be fair, the Jacobite. Chris Mundy, that's Marie. Chris Mundy, thanks. Keep them coming, Chris. Right, we normally get to, 172 for this evening for a live that wasn't supposed to happen. Honestly, I love the fact that you keep returning and keep supporting the channel, and you keep coming back for. Some people just view that. I mean, some of the nonsense. Hang on, Retro on his bikes. Adrian, even what you been saying now, Retro? Me just sort of wittering on. It's a bit warm in here in this hotel. No such thing as bloody air conditioning in the Middle East. Did you really just say that, Adrian? Say what? I say nothing. Pink and Usher have been deleting lots of tweets, Adrian. Chris, I think Usher has deleted all of his tweets on X, seemingly. Alan says it's freezing and blighty. Here, Alan, send some across here, man. It's Middle East. It's pretty roasting. So where should we go? Should I give you some insight into what goes on in radio? Should we talk about Zoe Ball? Did Diddy Daddy have a slip and slide? Very good, Marie. Karen, evening, Rev. Oh, Karen, you utter wrong. Hayden says, evening, Adrian. Thank you for all of your messages on X, Hayden. Really appreciate them. And Stuart, it's nice and cold in Dublin. Oh, stop teasing me, you're wrong. So in 98, 97, I sacked Zoe Ball because she was shite, in my view, and still is, in my view. Now, I'll just sort of countenance that by saying I've been in professional radio for over 40 years. So I know what is good, I know what is bad, because I've heard it, seen it, lived it, and experienced it. And Zoe Ball is not my cup of tea. She's not even my cup of coffee. As far as I'm concerned, in my professional view, she's sucking through her teeth. It sounds absolutely bloody awful. So as far as I'm concerned, she's shite. Oh, but she's back on Radio 2's breakfast show. She's better than James O'Brien, who I say, Alan. I've been watching a bit of James over the last couple of days. Very interesting, very interesting. So Zoe's back on the breakfast show after having like 5 weeks off. So let me tell you what's going on at the moment in professional radio, because this is what they do. From sort of mid-September, round about now, where are we? About now, about a week ago, the new audience research started. Zoe hasn't got long left on Radio 2. Scott Mills is a shoo-in. Neil, interesting, because hasn't Scott Mills and his husband just won that chase around the world thingy, where they all have to get to a destination first? Her ex is a good DJ though, says Andy Turner. Oh yeah, Fatboy Slim. And I've interviewed Fatboy Slim when he was part of House Martins. And he was always, poor Paul Heaton is just a wonderful songwriter. Zoe Ball is like rubbing lemon juice on a paper cut. Oi, 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 oi. I think Johnny Ball would be more entertaining than Zoe, and I preferred Bobby Ball. Thank you, Alan. Thank you. The Jacobite, but Zoe's a woman. They have to keep her. She's the Kamala of the BBC. Yeah, box tick. She's not a soft shoe shuffler. Can't say it now. Been drinking beer. It's this. If you listen to broadcasters, there's this thing that they do. I can't really do it because it's not something that I do naturally. It's sucking air through their teeth. Listen to her. It's shite, man. I was at college with someone who met Zoe Ball and said she got terrible BO. Hayden, there's every chance of that. I can't confirm or deny it. But there was a very, very, very famous multimillionaire-esque singer who I won't name. Paulie, you're utter wrong. Alan, oxygen theft. Paulie, I'm not going to repeat that. Well, it was the 90s. It was, I'm sure. Andy Turner, if you're losing listeners, why keep her? Because she ticks boxes, man. She's a woman. They couldn't tick any more boxes unless she was of a different colour and of a different persuasion, her predilection. Pennine County's slim boy fat, boy fat, and Hayden Zoe Ball has not been. You see, these comments dematerialise. It's almost like being in space. Nobody can hear you scream in space, Adrian. But Zoe, look, there's not many people out there that can do real broadcasting. There's not. It's as simple as that. And the way that Radio 2 is going, I don't listen anymore. Why? Retro says, really? Zoe Ball is a woman? Are you sure? Well, now that you say Retro. But I don't listen to Radio 2 now because it doesn't appeal to me. It's like a busman's holiday. I know what's what and how. But, and I need to sort of countenance what I'm saying by saying to you, the race across the world, Nicholas, what a pile of shite the production involved would have been off the scale. I agree. Although I watched the first one and I thought it was quite entertaining. The new Mrs. Allen and I watched it when we were in the middle of nowhere. And we quite enjoyed it. But this time, Scott Mills, have you seen how much Botox that boy's got in his face? And his physog? He don't move. And he's readily admitted that he's the gay community, they're always at it with Botox. They all want to look about 20. Botox is not for me. And let's get back to Zoe. So what's going on at the moment, and it's the same with, somebody mentioned James O'Brien in LBC, I've mentioned Zoe Ball in Radio 2. What's now happening is that radio is going into what they call quarter four. So it's the most listened to because who has more Botox, him or Michelle Mone? Oh, Stuart. What, oh? Yeah, wrong. I was looking at Michelle Mone, some of the notes I'd made earlier, and thought about mentioning her tonight because have you noticed it? Nobody's mentioning Michelle Mone and the 30 million that she should be coughing up. Nobody. Radio 2 sacked Alex Lester, Pennine Counties. Let me tell you a story about Alex. I'll just pause what I was going to do and tell you a story about Alex. Because Alex is one of the gentlemen of broadcasting. He's, as far as I'm concerned, and in my view, he is one of the loveliest, most talented, most supportive of broadcasters in the industry. Bar none. When I was a young guy in my 20s, and I was coming out of the nightclub and the hospital radio, and I was trying to make my way in professional commercial radio. Alex Lester was with me at Radio Tees. I was trying to get in. He was the professional that I looked up to, and I will tell you this: there is no one in radio that I have more respect for than Alex Lester. He's the consummate professional. He's talented beyond, he makes me sick, the amount of talent that man has. As far as his ears are concerned, his intellect is concerned, and broadcasting is concerned. He is one of the best ever, bar none. And I can tell you that because in Radio Tees, back in the 80s, when I was just a young guy trying to make it, I was a gopher, I was getting vinyl out and putting vinyl away for some of the presenters, and I was trying to just get my way in. Alex Lester took his time in a place that we called in Radio Tees the Record Library, because back in the day it was all vinyl. And there was another thing that I'll tell you about, that in radio we had something called vinyl burn. So when you were queuing up a vinyl record, because everybody was queuing up that record, it was the groove in the vinyl was being worn away, and it was called vinyl burn at the beginning of the intro. So you can tell a disc that's being played on radio because it has this thing called vinyl burn. Anyway, I was going into the record library where all of the new stuff was contained, where all of the library, this humongous library of vinyl with a reinforced floor, I'm sure. And I'd gone in there to do something. And Alex was so generous of his time. and so generous of his talent, and so generous of his insight into what it took to be a great presenter on commercial radio. Before I'd done any BBC, and he said to me, he said, Adrian, he said, look, everything has a beginning, middle and end. I said, what do you mean? What about Lisa Tarbuck Radio 2? Sometimes she's not bad, sometimes she's shite. She sucks the air through her teeth. It's something that I hate. Just in my view, P.T. Ham. Sometimes she's funny. Not as funny as her dad, but sometimes she's funny. And Alex said to me, he said, everything has a beginning, middle and end, Adrian. And I said, I don't understand, Alex. I don't understand. And he said, look, you get into it. You get into where you need to get to as a presenter. So if you're telling a story, you get in however you get in, and then you have the meat of the story. But you always have to consider your exit. When you want to get out of something, you always have to you don't know where the exit is. Evening, Nicky. Yeah, wrong. So it was Alex Lester that taught me the fundamentals of radio. Doesn't matter whether look, the most powerful presenter link is a station ID. Just saying it. Radio Tees, Rock FM, City FM, LBC, because that pays the bills. But you could have a 5-second or a 10-second or a 30-second or a 40-second or a 60-second link. But you always need to know where your entrance is and where your exit is, and the meat of the link. Alan says the yucca plant's disappeared. I haven't killed it yet, but there's a couple of things there that I might use. I might be able to use them as ear warmers a little later. Anyway, so anybody seen Tail Block Tracy tonight yet? She in the body of the Kirk. So Alex was, I use that as an example of Hayden, Twin Peaks. You can say that again. Hang on a second. If I twiddle with those, can we get Radio Luxembourg on it? So Alex was very generous of his time and his expertise. And look, he left Radio Tees and went on to the BBC and went on to Radio 2 and stayed overnight. It's the best time of the day. So I have enormous respect for Alex. But Zoe Ball, as a broadcaster, I think she's been very lucky. Read you a Caroline. Yeah, one of my dear friends from Air FM, who was a previous Radio Caroline presenter, died just 10 days ago. Is that the fall of Madonna with the big boobies, P.T. Ham? It could be. I mean, it's definitely, well, it could be the Elgin Marbles, I think, maybe. Maybe I can get it off the wall and flog it. I'm not. Maybe it's a Rubens. Rubens used to like nakedness. Laser 55, Atlantic 252. Yeah, all of that. Classic case of Nipplus erectus, said Aidan. Hello everyone, sorry I'm late. What have I missed? Yeah, wrong'uns. Everything, you're wrong'un. Neil Cunningham says Mo 1 is more lucky than the talentless Amanda Holden. I mean, not to sort of be disingenuous, but Amanda Holden looks younger when she's getting older. Don't know how she's doing that. Is it adrenochrome? Who knows? It's showbiz. I also, as a sort of aside for P. Diddy, so that's very good. I don't know who said that because it disappeared off my screen really quickly. So the country you're in doesn't believe in the burger then? No. So let's start and go chronological. You just, it must be hot there. I can hear the aircon running. Correct. It's bloody roasting. I'm a ginger ninja from, the north. I can't handle the heat. But if it was -20, like when I've been to Davos, in Switzerland, I walk out there in a mankini and a couple of flip-flops. And the locals are looking at me going, oh, I say, there's 2 foot of snow outside. Betty Swallows, definitely Hayden. The people in Davos look at me as if it's like, hang on a second, there's 2 foot of snow. What's he doing? Ask Amanda Holden to drive a desk. She wouldn't have a clue, says Neil Cunningham. I agree. Karina Jane said, I listen to Heart 90s. Yeah, the radio stations are fabulous. I mean, I know that Amanda and... oh God, I can't remember his name now. It's literally just gone off the tip of my tongue. Who's got cancer. I need to get to Davos for the cold, Stuart. It's fabulous. I mean, when the snow comes down, it proper comes down. There's like feet and feet and feet of snow outside, which is wonderful. I can't... Well, being a daft northerner, sorry I'm late. Where are you? Jackie Glasgow. I'm not in Glasgow, Jackie. I'm in the Middle East. It's bloody roasting. I've just had some back harvest. Jamie Theakston, thank you, Neil. Les Dennis had a lucky escape. Correct, Paulie. And Peter Sadler, Jamie Theakston, thank you. So Jamie Sadler's been diagnosed with cancer. Did his dominatrix tell him he had cancer? Because everybody forgets that, don't they? Uncle Frank Boff. Oh, he loved these jumpers and being whipped to buggery by a dominatrix. Sandra says, what do you think, Fayed? And could it be another Jimmy Savile? People coming out now, he's dead and can't say anything about it. I'm going to get to that because I have a very contentious opinion on that. And my opinion about Fayed, because it's not Al Fayed, the Al in anybody's name is reserved for royalty. It's Mohamed Fayed. And he just kind of added the epithet. Let me finish with Zoe Ball. I want to get to Fayed because I don't think many people are going to like my opinion on Fayed. Starmer was head of the CPS at the time for both cases. I know, Paulie. I know. And he's not really saying anything, is he? Young Starmageddon. 2-tier Kia. Starmer the Harmer. The Granny Harmer. So Zoe's going to be back on the Breakfast Show tomorrow, seemingly. But here's the thing. Jamie Theakston came out last week and said, I've got cancer. Zoe Bull, she's not been to work for 5 weeks. Slacker. And people are, this is the way it works. It's Q4, free gear Kia. All this reportage is coming out because this quarter, obviously, if you click on the uptake, there's 4 quarters a year. And it's a rolling research. My late granddad used to have the odd pint with Frank Boff in the early 80s. Yeah, he didn't have his dominatrix with him, did he? Frank Boff loved the dungeon. Rayner trying to gloss over staying in Ali's apartment and other Labour MPs. Oh, man, they're all at it. It's not like it's any surprise to us, is it? No, right. We'll get into it. Right, hang on. Stop commenting. Zoe Ball's mum also got cancer, hence her time off. 5 weeks. Slagger. My mother had cancer and died from cancer. Did I get 5 weeks off? Did I bollocks? Death by rage, somebody's just commented. So we're going into Q4, and this is how showbiz works. Please pay attention to this. They don't give a flying foxtrot about anything else other than themselves. They're egocentric sociopaths. They don't give a flying. It's Q4. Let's use anything that's going to get some awareness and some coverage, some reportage about what I'm doing on the radio. My uncle had cancer and died of cancer. I got 1 day off. Stuart, I know, I get exactly what you're saying. Although the people that I was working for at the time were very good and very supportive, but it's devastating. But her mum hasn't died yet, she's only got cancer. Unlike Catherine, Princess of Wales, who was pre-cancerous, is now telling everybody she's got cancer. Foxtrot Oscar. We're seeing through your shenanigans, and we're going to get the royal family in amongst... I've only made like 3 or 4... I've only made a couple of notes because they're all at it. So let's finish this. Radio, Q4. It's the most listened to. Why? Because during the summer, People go away on holiday. People are doing other stuff. They're up the allotment. They're abroad on holiday. They're doing stuff with the family. They're out. But Q4, the nights draw in, it gets colder. So more people are listening to more radio, whether it's breakfast in the morning. Let me tell you, if you get 20 minutes out of somebody at breakfast, you are very, very lucky. In the way Jamie Theakston had cancer, he is off the air. Of course, Andy. But what happens is, if Zoe Ball or Jamie Theakston says something, people go, oh, I'll have a listen. Whatever happened to Donna Eyre, Paulie Galtieri? She's a bit thin, but she's still around. She keeps doing these articles in the Times on Sunday. No idea why. But the reason why Jamie and Zoe are part of is they're hoping that their figures will go up by having this reportage done Q4. It's the most listened to quarter of the year. Not Q1, not Q2 in spring, not the summer quarter, it's the winter quarter. So if you've got a story that you can get some kind of coverage, a bit like Strictly. I mean, honestly, it sticks in my throat, all these shenanigans, because I know what they're up to. Oh, I'm ill. Well, shut up and Foxtrot Oscar. Off you go. We wish you well. We wish you long life. We wish you wonderful and brilliant health. Don't go and put it in the press. Don't, for Q4, get any kind of coverage. Off you go. Because we've seen through it. Well, I have, because I'm too long in the tooth. And as the wise old Chinese philosopher used to say, I'm too old a cat to be fucked by a kitten. Rachel Riley off Countdown, she's got PTSD from Strictly. Really? I mean, we need to shove an iron rod up these people's derriere because they haven't got any backbone. They haven't, I've got PTSD. Oh, here, Foxtrot Oscar, man. How do we end shite, as they say in the Northeast? Simply because they're just namby-pamby pinko liberals. I can out-misery anyone, but am I sitting here trying to give you all my misery? No, I'm a bollocks. As the Hugh Bovril says, they need a good pegging. We're back to P. Diddy again. We'll get to him in a second and all that loop. PTSD, everyone's got it nowadays. ADHD, PTSD, BBC, CIA, CNN. What? They're all at it. So anyway, he's back on the breakfast show tomorrow. Have a listen. I won't be, because it's shite. I left Radio 2 a long time ago. Rachel Riley has gone all bug-eyed and fish-lipped. I was going to put something on X today, which I thought was quite funny, about, can you remember Coronation Street? Who was the actress? Trouble is, everything needs to be compartmentalised. I agree, Pauline Makepeace. If you worked in an office I can't see that. Stuart, probably the PTSD. I get it. Look, I get it. Everybody's a victim. Everybody plays the victim card in 2024. Because everybody sort of, I need to be a victim. I need to be a victim. Oh, how do we end shite, man? Just live life. Because you only get one go at this. You only get one go round the roundabout. And you're going to tell everybody, I'm a victim. So, I just wanted to give you that little bit of awareness around Q4 and radio and why, I say, they're all coming out, whether it's Carol Vordenaux or whether it's any radio station, that if you see any coverage whatsoever in the mainstream press or online now up until middle of December, it's middle of September to the middle of December, it's all about ratings. They don't give a stuff about anybody else. So long as their figures are increased, then they don't care. Because if their figures go up, the management go, I say, we need to keep you. Now, I'll tell you this. The reason why I don't care is because every single market that I have broadcast in, I've been number one. Evening, Louise. Whether it's the Northeast or East Midlands or the Northwest on Century or any of the phone-ins, I have been number one. In fact, my listenership, hello Retro, oh, Martin Sullivan's in the body of the Kirk. P.T. Ham, I listen to Radio Lancashire these days on the way to work in the morning. Interesting. Nicholas, you need to come and play Hoochie Coochie in Newcastle Saturday afternoon. I know you're trying to get me to play live. You're wrong. Maybe. How does Ray Jar know who listens? Oh, right, Alan, this is how it works. So since the 80s, what they do is they put a diary into somebody's house. So you'll get a kind of metaphorical knock on the door, and somebody will go, hello, we're from the audience research people, Money Squawks and Walks. I know, Fix Text. We're from audience research people, and this is who we are. This is my little plastic thing that says who I am. I switched off Ram FM for Adrian back in the day. Paulie, yeah, utter rockin'. Wonderful. Doctor 69, only listen to Jazz FM. Oh, do you know, Helen, who was the girl that I work with at Jazz FM? Is it Helen Mayhew? She had one of the best radio voices ever. Absolutely fantastic and a great presenter. She used to do dinner jazz on Jazz FM, Top of 69. You'll know who I'm talking about. So, what was I saying? Yes, so basically what happens is Helen back? No, Martin, it was Helen Mayhew, I'm sure. Stuart says, I'd love to have listened to you on the radio when you were on. Me, Helen Mayhew, says Martin Sullivan. I know, Jazz FM coming in your ears. Courtesy of Phoenix Nights and Retro on his bike. New kitchen on Tuesday. So excited. Retro, you're so random. It's wonderful. So you'll kind of get a knock and they go, right, can we give you a diary? And basically what you do is whenever you listen to radio, you just mark down when you've listened. So if you listen to the breakfast show, whichever breakfast show you listen to, then you just mark it down. Oh, I listened while I was in the car or in the home. Or so it's who, what, when, where, why-ish. So you have a diary from Ray Jar diary. And getting a Ray Jar diary, some of the radio people are like, oh, bugger me, I've got a Ray Jar diary. What do I do? Who do I tick? And that's how they work out who's listening and where. Now it's 2024. You would have thought that with DAB or digital radio, that what they would do is they would give you a digital thing of some kind where you just go, oh yeah, listen via Alexa. Notice she's not giving me shit in my ear tonight. The DAB. So what do you have to say about our Fayed then? Well, you just had you wished, as we say in the Northeast. I'll get there eventually, but once I get past radio too. So you get a diary, you tick the diary, you monitor your radio listening, and then you just hand the diary in. But in 2024, surely we could be all electronic about it, but the radio stations don't want that. No, because the system that they have at the moment, look at the size of those two. The radio system that they have at the moment means that, well, it doesn't upset the apple cart, does it? And having been number one, thank you, Stuart, Martin Sullivan, DAB cramps too many stations on crap bandwidth. I agree, but we have to find a better way of, because radio's undergoing a real crisis of confidence, so to speak. My words, not anybody else's. But it seems that everybody keeps listening to more radio and more radio and more radio. And yeah, I talk to the youngsters, kind of the teenagers and the early 20s and the 20-somethings, and talk to them about their radio listening. They don't bloody listen. It's all online. So how can radio stations keep improving their audience? Yeah, Stuart says, now it's podcasting. I agree. If you haven't got a podcast, who are you? Who are you? And they're not listening. That generation are not listening. So give it another 10 or 20 years. Radio in this country is dead. Rusty Mouse says, I'm fed up with the amount of ads on radio. It's also internet radio. Ray Norton says radio, not independent like back in the old days. I know. So just watch out for any reportage to do with any radio stations between now and the middle of December, because it'll up their figures. And how they get their figures, how they're the most listened to in this day part, and this and that and the other. Oh, it's because people have got diaries and they're listening. So let's just kind of chuck some commercial radio into the background now. I want to get into Fayed in a moment. Late Night Love. Shoutcast radio was more popular when I was a teen. I listened to Pat and Mick on Capital. It was a movement at the time. Oh yeah, Pat and Mick. What was the song that they did? Pat and Mick. It was a cover of a standard. Wasn't Gonzalez, haven't stopped dancing yet. Pat and Mick. What was their hit, man? I can't remember now. Let's all chant. Thank you, Martin. And I will tell you about Pat Sharp, who's an absolute gentleman. Because I've worked with Pat, been out to lunch numerous times with Pat, because he was part of the lineup at Liberty 963 that I was managing. And Pat Sharp is a gentleman, he's a Merchant Taylor's boy, OMT as they call him, because Merchant Taylor's is one of the best schools in the country. So I do hope he's well. I do hope he's making a few bob. Rusty Mouse, someone breaking in? Well, they were nearly told to Foxtrot Oscar. How very dare they interrupt my life broadcasting to you? Pat Sharp's here. Yeah, back in the day, but I won't have a word said against him, because he's a fabulous guy, fabulous guy, great company, an amazing broadcaster, such a professional. Steve Pink, oh Andy, don't. Let's talk about Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, you know, the boxer. Love Pat Sharp on Funhouse. I mean, wonderful times. James Stanage phone-ins were brilliant. Ray Norton, look, James is a friend of mine, and he, as far as I'm concerned, and there are many that, you know, Alan Robson, Clive Bull, Scotty, there are many that could claim to be the king of speech radio in this country. But I'm telling you now, James Stanage, James Whale, of course, who's not very well at the moment, and I do wish him well, but James Stanage is the king, as far as I'm concerned. Nick Abbott, another great broadcaster. I mean, you know, bringing newness to broadcasting in this country, doing speech when he was on, was it Virgin? He used to ring all the phone-ins around the country. Brilliant. Neil says Stanage was a trailblazer. Agreed. Ray says, Adrian, I totally agree. Nick Abbott is a great talent. He's still broadcasting on LBC. Clive Bull. All the LBC guys are at the top of the tree. They're at the top of the food chain. They're exceptionally talented in lots of different ways. But, you know, Scotty and Alan Robson, Stanage, lots of, and forgive me when I'm not talking about Tommy Boyd. I should mention him. I would listen to Nick Abbott and Gideon Co on GLR. P. Diddy, David Hamilton. Diddy, David Hamilton. I think the word Diddy is not, shouldn't be bandied about nowadays for obvious reasons. But there are many claimants to the king of speech radio in this country, and we've got a heritage of, God, I mean, Stanage and the like were mid-70s. James Whale was on Metro from the mid-70s, 76, 77. Alan Robson. I mean, I love all these men. Mike Elliott. Oh. I miss Mike. I do miss Mike. James H. Reeve, of course, in Manchester. Rev, get yourself back up northeast on the radio. Be fabulous. Viv Indalo. I will try my best, Viv. I'm not sure when and how, but you never know. Things may happen. I'm saying now. But there are many people that could lay Matthew Bannister, no, Bezic, Alan Bezic, fired every 5 months. I know the feeling. But Bezic and Elliott, Mike Elliott. I went for a beer with Mike once, and we literally, it was across the road, the Tyne Bridge. Kenny Everett, yeah, it wasn't a speech boy though. Bannister was head of GLR, bless him. But Mike Elliott and we came out of Century, and I said, "Hey, Mike, I was an editor of a magazine at one point, and I said to him, Mike, I want to do an interview. Me and you, let's go and have a beer." Like half a dozen beers later, I'm all squiffy and like, "Oh, blimey, Mike." And he was as straight as a die, straight up, straight up and down. Bon vivant. He was a wonderful man, wonderful company. And radio is a sadder place for the loss of Mike Elliott. I do miss him. I do miss him. Bannister was the destruction of Radio 1, down to him. Belfield certainly wasn't telling the truth. No, I know he wasn't, Paulie. Listen to you, Adrian, back on Century during the dinner time show. Class. Thank you, Ray. It was. There are some people who did speech radio who, I wouldn't thank you to listen to them. I listened to someone. They will be nameless this morning, and as a professional, can I say this straight to you? They were shite. And this is a really high profile radio station. So much for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm going to get to it with Fayed in a minute. I'll leave Anthony Joshua because we'll just laugh at him. He's an arse. But I listened to when I'm listening to people on the radio, I'm not listening to them to be entertained. It's a busman's holiday for me. I'm listening to their technique. I'm listening to the way they do things. And no, it wasn't Kyle. And this person was just utter shite. That was a Belfield saying, double A, Stuart. What, the whole truth, nothing but... You say that in court. He didn't do that in court, did he? Didn't even have representation in court. Silly boy. And I was listening to this technique, and every time somebody says something, or somebody gave an opposing view, then he was just kind of flip-flopping there. He was a bit like Keir Starmer in politics. 227 watching, only 88 likes. Hit the likes, everyone. Thank you, Viv. In Darlow. Yeah, you're wrong-uns. I'm knocking my pipe out here, and you can't even like it. Oof, tough audience. So I was listening to this person who, look, when you do speech radio, it's the most difficult job in radio. Stuart, but that wasn't why you called. Brilliant, Paulie. Wonderful. It is the most difficult job in radio. I think some boxing is staged. What do you think, PD Ham? I think Anthony Joshua needs to take a long, hard look at himself. He was shite. My thumb's gone up. Brilliant. So speech radio is difficult because you never know what call you're going to get next. And so let me transition away. Not that transition, but let me transition away. And let me say that one of the most difficult shows I've ever had, Derek Hatton had to go home with shite. You can say that, but I can't possibly comment. So I did a show when Liberty 963 when Diana was murdered, and Joshua kept throwing himself on the canvas. Kathy Harper, Cara Noble, yeah, she was a capital. I think I met Cara a long time ago, very fleetingly. But of the day, she was perfect for it. Good evening, Adrian. Love the background. Yeah, both of them. I'm pointing that way when it should be. Hang on, how do I do that? That way. Do you think I should take that home with me and put that up instead of the LBC thing? Jezza's Confessions. Yeah, Martin. Yeah, exactly. Somebody said to me the other day, they were trying to tell me off for saying that Jezza was BRMB. Well, yeah, that's where he started. But he was at Century when I was at Century. So please don't tell me about how to do my job, what my job entails, and what I know about broadcasting, because I've forgotten more than you know. You know who I'm talking to. Caring, understanding, 90s type. Foxtrot Oscar. Anyway, so one of the shows that I did at Liberty in the week that Diana was murdered, in my view, I'm allowed it, was Flashing Blade. First time caller was about to end it. The Flashing Blade talked to her for hours. The Flashing Blade. Alan Robson, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Hi from the Gambia. Christine Turton, wonderful. Jezza was Jeremy Kyle. I know who Jeremy Kyle is. But just somebody had a go at me recently about, oh, he started off at BRMB. Yes, he did. And I also broadcast for BRMB in Birmingham. Thank you, Peter. I think that's another one. So the week that Diana was bumped off, I was working for Liberty 963, and I swear that the country was breaking. It wasn't going to last much longer. By the time we got to the funeral on the Saturday, the country was in a right state. And on the Friday night, I did a show called Songs for a Princess. Go figure. And I literally had people weeping and wailing down the phone at me. Now, a lot of these guys that have done speech, whether it's Stanage or Robson or Mike Elliott or Scotty or Clive Bull or any of the greats, I'm not sure about Clive Bull because he's the consummate professional. But you don't get any training. It's like on-the-job training. It was to have a knowledge. Adrian, one or well, I did one from 90 to 91, then left and went to run radio stations in Birmingham, did Air FM, Hallam FM in Sheffield, and then came back in 90 FM in Birmingham for 92, and then came back in 93. Steve Walsh, you what? I would say my second stint. The first stint was brilliant. Best radio station you ever worked for? Ooh, LBC. I remember I want to get to Fayed, and I'll sort of kind of get to Fayed via LBC. Century 106 in the East Midlands, the Century network, I loved. I loved with every fibre of my being. I loved doing the lunchtime phone-in Century 106. I wish I was back there now doing that. I loved Real Radio in South Wales. But the excitement, the sometimes getting off, dependent on what I was doing and where I was going. Clive Warren, love Clive. Steve Allen, legend. If Clive ever comes across this on YouTube, love you, brother. Love you. I hope you're well, and I hope things are going well in your life. Clive Warren is just a magnificent man. He's just wonderful. Funny as. Spent lots of time in the company of Clive Warren. He's a wonderful guy. And Steve Allen. I remember listening to Adrian when Adrian was on LBC. Oh, the Overall. So let's get back to LBC. So one of my first stints at LBC back in 2002, I think it was. I was a bit of an agent provocateur, and I was just winding people up. And one of the things that let's see the kind of reaction. Let's see the reaction to, and I think I've told you this story before. I went on air and I said, so I worked for Liberty 963, and the then news editor used to walk into the building every day. Did I tell you that Simon Bates cupped my bollocks? But he hopes I never say that in public. So the news editor used to walk in every day and he used to go, oh, morning, Totty. So I went on LBC one weekend and I said, look, is Totty a word that you can't use anymore? And I mean, I don't know whether it was because it was the shandy drinkers or what was going on, but literally they were apoplectic with rage at me using the word totty. Because this news editor, he literally walked in, and I had the staff, because I was part of the management team at Liberty. This was just off the Edgware Road in that particular building. And some of the women used to, the staff used to come to me. Daft Lad says, what's the topic? We'll get there eventually. I'm going to tell you about Fayed, you wrong 'un. And they came to me and said, look, Adrian, it's unacceptable. We can't have this. Bit of totty. Can't have this. you know, it's 1997? 1997, we're evolved now, tell them to shut the gob. So I had to go to them and say, look, mate, they're not happy. They're giving me pelters. I'm the one they're targeting. So do you mind? And not. You're fired. Oh, brilliant, Martin. So I went on LBC and I said, look, is totty a word that we can use? Is it descriptive? Is it an insult? Is it? So I was asking questions. Now, there is a technicality here. If you ask a question rather than a definitive statement, you can get away with it. Gaunty got sacked. Oh, Alan, I wish I could tell you about young Gaunty. Maybe the next live. Remind me on the next live, and I'll tell you my story about Gaunty, John Gaunt, not his real name. So we did this phone in about whether totty was acceptable. Vintage radio. A question for the host. That'll be me then. Could you get some of the old? Yeah, I know everybody. I know everybody in radio over the last 50 years. And yes, I would love to. Paul Gambaccini. Maybe not. And, well, I don't know. Paul Gambaccini might decree that I don't have enough viewers, or Ricky Durkin. Ricky Durkin. Blimey, I haven't seen Ricky for 20 odd years. He worked with me at, was it Century 106? But yeah, of course I know Ricky. Tim Westwood, proper Rogan, Andy. Totti, good player. Yes, he was for Italy. I was called Totti and I don't mind. Thank you, Pauline. But so on LBC, I kind of do this. I'm questioning whether it's acceptable in 1997, and I've never had a response like it. Literally, if they could have found a gun and shot me and got me, I don't know, put me in a dumpster and got me out of London, then, yeah, get out of London, get out of London, go back to where you're from. I said, what do you mean, where I'm from? No, it's unacceptable. The word totty's unacceptable. We're not having it. Get lost. Did Ray Terrett go down associated with Jimmy Savile? No, he didn't, Ray. Ray Terrett. Alex Belfield knows him. So there was this massive kickoff on LBC, which was fabulous. Because as an agent provocateur, you're a wind-up merchant. You just get people to react to what you're saying. But the people that were listening to LBC at that time, oi, they proper went at it. I mean, I was closing the microphone and literally bursting my incontinence pants. And then when I opened the microphone, they were still at it. They were still calling me, and the phone up couldn't handle the amount of calls, and they were all at it. But it was funny. So then Clive Bull, so I went off, I had some stuff to do and took a couple of months away. And then I went back to LBC and Clive Bull went on air and he said, oh, have a guess who's coming up after the news at 10, 1 o'clock or whatever it was. And literally the phone lines went nuts. The switchboard was full of people. And he was like, hello, you're live on LBC, or whatever he was saying. Did Vanessa Feltz get sacked from Talk Radio? Not sure. Don't think so. I think Talk Radio decided to tighten their belts. And they couldn't afford Vanessa. So that's why she's possibly gone over to LBC. Don't know. I'm speculating. But I would suggest that maybe there was stuff going on at Talk Radio, which is why they went from Talk TV to back to Talk Radio. Camilla was Charlie's totty. Have you ever met Vanessa Feltz? No, Stuart. Be nice to, because it would be interesting to find out. I mean, maybe I could interview Vanessa. It would be really interesting to find out a little depth about Vanessa, because she has an extensive resume of working on radio, and she's such a high-profile person that I would love to scratch the surface and get into the real Vanessa, get into her background. I'm aware of her background and her religion and her faith and her beliefs. So I think rather than, You know how sometimes people do interviews and they just scratch the surface. They're not really getting into who the person is, the essence of the person. I'd love to interview Vanessa and get to the essence of who she really is. So let me get back to Clive Bull. So Clive Bull goes on air and goes, have a guess who's coming back tonight? Who's back on LBC? And literally the phone lines went nuts and people were like, please don't tell me it's Adrian Allen. And Clive said, I can't tell you, you're just going to have to wait until after the news. And the lines went nuts. I went on after the news. Neil Cunningham, I didn't say, he said, not many people have said they want to get into Vanessa Feltz. I didn't say that. I said, scratch the surface and find out the essence of who Vanessa is. Yeah, utter wrong. So Clive did this. He set it up brilliantly. So I come on after the news and nobody could get on. Nobody could get on. And my phone up through the glass was like, oh, Adrian. They're all having a go at you. I was like, brilliant. Put them on. Because every caller is programming material. Some producers don't realise that. And if you're any good at doing the phone-in, like Stanage and Scotty and Alan Robson and Clive Ball and the many, and Tommy Boyd, and forgive me for not mentioning all of the people that are exceptional talents at doing phone-ins, won't be the essence of Battenberg in the field. Every single caller is programming material. So if they call in, I think they would struggle to get anywhere near to getting steady on Ray. Tommy Vance. Oh, it wasn't, Tommy Vance, rock god, Andy, but not a phone-in guy. So let's just leave phone-ins there. And when I see Clive next, hopefully soon, I'm gonna remind him about the time he did the phone in and said, oh, you'll never guess who's coming on after the news. Oh, and we were in were we in the ITN building? Not sure. Didn't Tommy Boyd work on, it's gone now. There's a lot of programs relating to David Jason on TV right now. Is something about to break? Mike Smith, not a talk guy. Just hearing you, I will let her know. Okay, brilliant. Each way bet, it was called, I think. Adrian, I love all your content, but I missed the Battenberg reference. Really? Have you not got any tonight? Oh, come on, there must be somebody in the body of the cook. The message has gone. So I can't believe that even though this is a broad church, Ray Norton, yes, I'm not hearing the rumours. I've known about them for bloody 30 years, man. So if anyone's got a slice of Battenberg spare, somebody put a message up there saying they're obviously not getting any. Battenberg, before you start, you're wrong. And didn't Tommy Boyd work on Radio Leeds? Not sure. Maybe, but Tommy, I think, was doing radio on the South Coast somewhere, but one of the talk gods. Absolutely, categorically. In fact, I'll try and talk to Tommy as one of the greats if I can manage to set up a conversation with him. Wonderful, and dry, really straight and dry. Would be hard to interview Mike Smith. Yeah, I get that, you're wrong. No income tax, no VAT, plenty of Battenberg in the font. Oh, it'll be all soggy. Nothing worse than soggy Battenberg. Richard Allenson, Andy, let me tell you, when I was living in London back in the 90s, Allenson used to do the early breakfast show before the breakfast show on Capital. Oh, man, his timing is one of the best ever. He nailed every single voiceover. He was just wonderful to listen to. And the flow of, look, really simply, radio is all about one sort of mountain top going into the valley, into another mountain. And the job of the presenter is to take you from one mountain top to another. Or if you want to use another analogy, it's all about the wave, the crest of a wave, and keeping the listener on that crest of the wave for as long as you can, because it's all about not only the amount of people listening, but the average hours that they listen to. So the late night phone-in on a radio station was there. The job of the late night phone-in was to get people listening as long as possible. So by the end of the week, you would have, say, 1 million people listening, but you would have 1 million people listening for 10, 15, 20 hours a week. Anything over sort of 7 or 8 hours a week was huge amounts. A lot of people, because I was doing phone-ins for 2 or 3 hours a time, they would be listening to me for 15, 16 hours a week, at least. Sometimes it was 20 odd hours a week. And that way, the radio station was able to say, look, we've got 1 million people listening, but we have that 1 million people listening for 20 hours a week. So your advertising on commercial radio, not BBC, the commercial radio stations would go, oh, brilliant. So if I buy advertising, they would get the audience listening to your radio station with my adverts on it, loads. That's the way commercial radio worked. So I wanted to mention LBC simply because I wanted to get to Fayed. Now, I'm not sure how long this is going to last, but I have a definite opinion on what is going on in the press at the moment. I'm not very happy about it. Why? Because I worked for Fayed for a couple of years in the late 90s. And you will notice, what made you want to start a career in radio, said Stuart. I would say that we had a youth club at my school. I was taught how to cue records up. I mean, I didn't even know what I was doing. Just a dear friend of mine that's no longer around, Nigel, he taught me how to cue a record, and it was like this whole world opened up. And then Metro Radio had a wonderful mid-morning presenter called Mark Seaman, who I'm not sure he's still in radio at the moment, but he was the mid-morning guy on an amazingly romantic and wonderfully inspiring radio station. And he came to my youth club, and I just said to him, I said, Mark, how do you do radio? And he said, just be yourself. I was like, oh, that's not very good. That's not very good. I'm a DJ here in a youth club. I was only 16 at the time in this youth club. How do I get into professional radio? He said, tell you what, why don't you come and sit in on one of my shows? I was like, brilliant. We're at Metro. Yeah. I went in one Tuesday night. And this is, I mean, I think about this and the embarrassment of it. I've never told anybody. This is the first time I'm actually saying this out loud. But I went in to sit in this radio, and when somebody who's broadcasting opens the mic, puts the fader up for the microphone, it cuts the speakers off in the studio. And the reason why it does that is to stop what's called howl round. Danny Baker, I bet he wish he hadn't put that picture on social media. And so I'm sitting in doing Mark's doing 7 till 10 on a Tuesday evening. Gives me the 50p tour around Metro Radio, and he's broadcasting, and he says to me, he said, on the seat next to you. And I was thinking, blimey, what a bloke. He's brought some beer into the studio. Well, let's have a party. So I'm looking around the chairs thinking, where's the cans? Where's the cans? Cans to me meant cans of beer. But cans to Mark Seaman meant headphones. Because if you haven't got your headphones on, I couldn't hear what the music was doing when he was doing his links. And he obviously thought I was in there to learn. And I was like, where's the beer? Where's the beer? And I've never told anybody that. I mean, I think about it now and I'm just embarrassed by it. Just thinking, I'd gone to Metro Radio and somebody's bought the grog in. And Mark was a delight. It was Mark Seaman on Metro Radio who gave me the impetus and the inspiration. Adrian, can you remember Tom Davies? I've just been told he killed himself years ago. I mentioned that on a live. I'll get to that in a moment. So Mark Seaman was the reason why I got into commercial radio. He was the reason why I got into radio. But I was working at a hospital. I then went on to hospital radio, and one of the guys one of the guys at the hospital radio station got into radio T's as a professional, my dear friend Mark Matthews. And he said to me, he said, "Ian, do you want to come in and do some bits and pieces?" I was like, "Rip your arms off, Mark." He's like, "Right, yeah." So I was still doing hospital radio. I'd had the inspiration from Mark Seaman at Metro Radio, and then I got to be a gopher in Radio T's. And I was just, I was writing questions, answering phones for quizzes, answering phones, getting records out and putting records away from the record library, as I told you earlier with Alex Lester. I was just in and about this radio station. And it was just so, God, it was wonderful. The energy in a radio station is like when you put the headphone in. I just want to make sure that I am actually broadcasting, because there are many. Right. MI6 wouldn't surprise me. It froze you wrong. Thank you, Peter. Let me get back to where I was. So there's a wonderment about broadcasting, and a lot of people, they have this affectation. John Gaunt, whatever happened to him? Right, brilliant, thank you. So there's a lot of people I've been live in nightclubs where people have done time checks. What the actual? I've listened to people. Look, just stop it all. The reason why a lot of people didn't get on the radio was because they were simply not good enough. And now in 2024, people think that they're getting on these radio stations where nobody's listening, and they think they're a broadcaster. It's about studying. Dave Cash, Clive Warren, wonderful. Thanks for that great story, said Stuart. Tagged you on X, hope it brings a smile. Thank you, Nicholas. So I've been very lucky to have the radio career that I've had. But it's this wonderment, this romance, this just listening in a studio with like brilliant speakers in a proper. I'll tell you another story, and I didn't want to do necessarily radio tonight, but I will get to Diddy because there's something you need to know. I will get to Fayed because there's lots of things that you need to know. I will get to the Middle East. I'm going to make some predictions for you to take away. What was I going to tell you before I get to Fayed? There are people that are still trying to get into radio that are simply not good enough. And I believe that radio doesn't know what it needs to do now or be. It's going to turn into podcasting. Everybody's known this for years. I mean, Rogan's been doing it for 10, 12 years. Scotty's had a YouTube channel for over 10, 11 years. Hang on, English. I told you about Totty about 10 minutes ago. And commercial radio will never go back to the 80s. So, Wacko Jacko, Al Fayed, and Uri Geller, what a trio. VW, I've already told you that story, because the person that you missed out of all of that was a Labour peer. So let's do. I'll wind the radio up. I'll tell you about this, and we'll get to Fayed. So commercial radio. If you ever had the chance to present on commercial radio in the 80s and some of the 90s, Diary of a CEO podcast, really good. Agreed. Richard Park, Edith Bowman. Andy, I'll tell you a very quick story. So I'm on Century 106 in the East Midlands. The lunchtime phone-in is the most listened to show on the station. According to David Lloyd, who was the managing director of the station, and this is written in a letter to me, a private letter to me. He said, "You single-handedly turned around an ailing radio station by sheer force of personality." Obviously, that doesn't come across on here. Might do on the radio. And Capital bought the Century Network. Is Peng still going? Maybe. Small station. Still doing his usual shtick. But Richard Park came into Century 106 and he was giving a speech to everybody in the station. They wanted to have a national brand rather than a regional brand. And Richard Park, and I think he's still in, he's consulting, I think. He's still in the industry somewhere. And Richard Park came into Century 106 and he saw me, and he said to me, "Oh, the infamous Adrian Allen." And I shook hands, and I looked at him dead in the eye, and I said, "Oh, the more infamous Richard Park." And we both laughed. We both laughed. So to kind of link one of the stories I told earlier about Pat Sharp, Pat told me a story about when Richard Park fired him from Capital, and he went on to do other stuff. And I will reiterate, love the Century Football Phone in Brian Clough, absolute fantastic radio. VW, I'll tell you, maybe on Wednesdays live, because it's one of my greatest experiences as a man, as a football fan, and as a broadcaster, meeting Brian Clough. I'll tell you about that another time, this coming Wednesday. So Pat told me this story about Richard Park, who he took Pat out for a walk, and he was giving him all the niceties, and he said, "You know, Pat," because he was from the Weege, he was Glaswegian. His accent not as thick as it should have been, but so he said to Pat, he said, "Pat, I don't load the bullets, I just pull the trigger." I mean, what a way to sack somebody. So let's get the Fayed. That's all the commercial radio. I could literally regale you with hours and hours and hours of stories. And thank you for staying with the live this evening that wasn't supposed to be. Thank you for staying with me so far. So is Pat a nice person as he is on the telly? Oh, more so, Stuart, more so. He's a wonderful man. He's very talented, he's very able, he's been to the top of the mountain and the top of the food chain, and I will not ever have a bad word said against him, because he's just a really, really, really top man. Let's get the Fayed, because I've been reading all the reportage over the last 3 days, and I have a very definite opinion on what's going on. I'm going to ask you a question. Straight question. Why is this happening now? Question mark. Do you have any idea why this is happening now? Question mark. Because I'll give you some background by Mr. Fayed. Now, as you know from previous lives, I've told you about my involvement with Mr. Fayed. So back in late 96, get a call from a friend of mine. "Look, I've just taken over this radio station for, have you heard of Mohamed Al-Fayed?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, everybody's heard of him. He owns Harrods." And he said, "Well, I'm running his radio station." Right, okay. So will you come over and kind of help me turn it around? So I went in as part of the management team, head of presentation, head of music. And on my roster, there was Bruno Brooks, Simon Bates, Pat Sharp, other Zoe Ball, other luminaries. And a lot of people are saying, is it because Fayed's dead and he can't counter the allegations? So I'm going to give you my experience. I'll give you some, and then when I get time over the next couple of days, I'll give you a real deep dive into my experience. Now, my experience, I joined Liberty 963 when it was just off the Edgware Road in London, and it was housed in the same building as Jazz FM. And Mr. Fayed wanted the radio station to be next to Harrods. So if you're ever on the Brompton Road or opposite Harrods, then if you look over the road, it's been changed now. The building's been changed. I don't know whether he sold it off or somebody sold it off or made it into office space. But we had a brand new office put in there by Mr. Fayed. Brand new state-of-the-art studios, 2 of them, which must have cost him an arm and a leg. I know it did. But when I joined the radio station, its annual budget was £9 million a year. That's how much Mr. Fayed was putting into the radio station, Liberty 963. And the reason why he was doing that was because he believed that he was going to take the government down. He was having spats left, right and centre with the politicos of the day. Remember, this is back in the day when people were taking brown envelopes with a couple of grand in them. Remember those stories? But he thought he was going to bring the government down by having this radio station, because it was originally called Viva, because it was an all-female station, and the females who had their own radio station didn't support it. So it had the moniker within the media in London as Vulva AM. And then we took it over, called it Liberty 963. We had to bring the budget down because 9 million was way too much. They were paying some people a lot of money. We're going to go into that. Cash for questions, yes, of course, Tom. And the passport row, yeah, I think that was just, it was like a couple of kids in the schoolyard. And Mr. Fayed wanted to bring the budget down to at least below £6 million. So that's why me and the other management were brought in to bring it down, the cost of what it was costing him. So we did all that. We got rid of some people who were charging a lot of money, and we brought it down to a much more manageable radio station. I had lots of conversations and lots of wonderful conversations with national broadcasters like Bruno Brooks and Simon Bates, Pat Sharp, as I've already mentioned, some of the others who, to be fair to them, I mean, I'm just a northern boy coming in going, right, this is what's going on. And I was doing Snoop sessions with all of them, which is where somebody sits down with the presenter and goes, he could have done that better, or he could have done that better, or why didn't you do this, or should we do this for you? And a lot of the broadcasters, I mean, we're talking about people that have been at Radio 1 and were making a few bob. I mean, he went over to Classic FM once he left Liberty. But how can I tell Simon Bates what to do as a broadcaster? Our tune. How could I? So I didn't. I just got on with him until he cut my sphericals when I was bending over an office table once. Evening, Simon. And not his real name, obviously. And so the Fayed time. So we moved from Edgware Road and we went to the Brompton Road, and there was this building opposite which had 7 or 8 floors, and we were the very top floor until Kevin Keegan and Arthur Cox took over at Fulham. I'll tell you about that in a second. So we were on the 7th or 8th floor. I think we were the 7th, and Mr. Fayed was creating these apartments on the 8th floor above this whole building. I mean, they were palatial. They were proper. They were massive. They were the size of humongous football fields. And one was for Kevin Keegan and one was for Arthur Cox. I mean, literally, you couldn't afford them. It would have cost you millions. But Mr. Fayed wanted to compliment Kevin Keegan and Arthur Cox because they were manager and assistant manager at Fulham Football Club that he bought. I'm not a Keegan fan either, Gene. Wonder why he was beaten up in that car down the lane once. Got any answers? I have. Can't put them here, though. So, and Kevin Keegan and Arthur Cox didn't take these apartments. Didn't. Because in this BBC documentary, they quite rightly say that Mr. Fayed had all of the phones bugged and had CCTV everywhere. I mean, literally every corner you went round, every corridor. I think Mr. Fayed lived in Esher, or not far away. He had a country pile that was massive. And where all of his kids lived, and I think where Dodie's buried. And so the CCTV was everywhere, and the phones were everywhere. So do you think that anybody who didn't want to let other people know what they were up to would want to know what was going on? No. Gene says, I believe that Mr. Fayed was a very generous man to those who were loyal. Yes, he was. I agree completely. So I'm going to give you my insight, my personal experience of what I know from the Fayed organization. Did Mike Hollingsworth work for Fayed? Maybe at the beginning, not sure. I think maybe did he not set up Viva? Sorry, if I say Vulva, apologies, because that's what I knew it as. I think he did. I think it was Mike Hollingsworth that set up the whole Viva thing, and then must have got into negotiations for Fayed to buy it. Johnny Giles sorted King it out, really. So I have nothing. Now, people may point fingers at me, but I'm telling you this. My experience of Mr. Fayed was nothing short of exemplary. Now, I know he may have had his dark side. He may have done things that he shouldn't have done, but I asked you this question at the beginning of this. Why is this all coming out all of a sudden? I will address that in a moment. So when we got into the radio station, when we were moved over to the Brompton Road, it was this really long, it was a thin and long office with kind of the MD's office at the back, and then further down it was two studios, one for production, one for broadcast. And the broadcast, we used to flip-flop sometimes, but I was on air for, as I said to you earlier, Diana's funeral. And there were men walking around the top of Harrods carrying what I could see to be machine guns. And I rang DMD and I said, "Here, what the bloody hell's going on? There's blokes walking around with machine guns." Marie, I agree with you. I'm going to get to that in a second. There's blokes walking around the top of Harrods with machine guns. Adrian, you've seen nothing. You've seen nothing. Just finish your program and go home. So I did. I still saw what I saw. And let me tell you what Mr. Fayed thought was going on. Mr. Fayed originally was an accountant for, I will just say, very, very, right, I'll wait till the sound comes back because this is a really important part of the story. Andrew James, you're utter wrong, but welcome to the body of the Kirk. Can you just let me know if the sound is okay? Because this is, I mean, I was only going to do half an hour. I'm surprised that the hotel's not banging on the door saying, "Oi, you're wrong, and get off." Sound is fine. Thank you, Nicholas. There's no Bluetooth on. I've made sure of that. So let me tell you this story. So originally, Mr. Fayed was an accountant, and he was an accountant for one of the richest, wealthiest families in the world. If you think it was the Saudi royal family, well, you can say that, but I can't possibly comment. And when you get to that level of wealth, all that happens is you need wealth managers. And they have carte blanche to spend your money to make you even wealthier. And Mr. Fayed was a wealth manager for very wealthy Saudi family. So he had billions to play with and to make these families even more wealthy. But Mr. Fayed got into selling arms and armaments, because he got into with, can you remember a man called Adnan Khashoggi? Adnan Khashoggi was one of the wealthiest arms dealers in the world. So much so that Jackie O, JFK's wife, married him to protect herself from the other dark forces, to use the Queen's words. So Mr. Fayed was the wealth manager and made a shit ton. We're not talking about the odd 1,000 or even million here. We're talking billions and billions and billions. So him and his brothers used some of that money, because they'd made a shit ton of it, to buy Harrods. And it was a straight shootout. It was a death match with Tiny Rowland. Remember him? And the establishment in this country thought that Tiny Roland was going to buy Harrods. Didn't want some Egyptians to buy it, some camel shaggers. No, no, no. Tiny Roland's going to win. And he didn't. So from that point on, Mr. Fayed was looked down upon by the establishment. But Mr. Fayed had bought Harrods, and that was his power base. Now, it was very, 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 very well known amongst the staff. And I'll countenance this by saying a lot of the characters that they've mentioned in the BBC documentary, I've actually met. The security people, the assistants, everything, I met and know them. And the way life works, if somebody gets up on their high horse a little bit, then you just have to tell them. I've told you before, when Simon Bates fondled my sphericals, I had to say to him, you do that again, I'm going to rip your arms off and shove the seggy ends up your ass. So when people who were who are working the security detail, I didn't back down. I didn't back down. And they weren't happy about it. But I will tell you this. When Mr. Fayed came across for a meeting, we had a loose date. As in, say it was Tuesday the 14th. And we would, the chairman's coming across to see us. Okay, we had to get everything done. We had to have everything ready so that he came into the office. And I'll tell you how he did that in a moment. He would come into the office, he would sit down, and it was, what do I need to know? What do you want? What do we need to do? Quick, 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 quick. I've got to go back to Harrods. Now, the way he used to come into the office was, our office, as I say, was a long office, had the MD's office at the end and had the studios at one end, but the lifts, the access to the office was in the middle. And we would be told, chairman's coming across. It was never Mr. Fayed, it was always the chairman's coming across. And he would come across with 4 Harrods security guards. He would also come across with 4 personal bodyguards. And these bodyguards were all ex-special forces. To a man, he only hired what he perceived to be the best. So what would happen is 2 Harrods security guards would come out of the lift and would go into the office, and they would go to the ends of the office. Then 2 personal bodyguards would come into the office and take up position halfway down the office. Then Mr. Fayed would walk in with his 2 other personal bodyguards that would walk through the double doors, hang a left, and go into the office where we would be waiting, and it would be bang, 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 bang. The 2 other Harrods security guards would stay near the lift to make sure that nobody came into the office whilst Mr. Fayed was there. Now, as I said to you, let's retrace our steps a second. Mr. Fayed, as the accountant and wealth manager for one of the wealthiest families on planet Earth, got messed up in arms deals. Multi-billion pound arms deals. And there is a very famous, I can't remember the ruler, but Mr. Fayed was sitting next to, there was an army coup perpetrated. So there was this army kind of, you know how the Russians will have army day or military day where they parade all of their arms and tanks and stuff. The Bovril, I'm getting there in a second, who was Fayed frightened of. So there was this army parade in front of Mr. Fayed, who was sitting to the right-hand side of this ruler, and this ruler was going to buy a shit ton of these arms and armaments. That's why they were having this parade. But this parade stopped in front of the ruler and opened fire on the ruler. Mr. Fayed, obviously, everybody ducked, ran away, kept themselves safe. But Mr. Fayed thought that attack, not only was it on the ruler, but on him because of the arms deals. And then when Diana and Dodie were murdered, Mr. Fayed, and he spoke to me and others in the radio station about this. He thought that he was the target. Might have been Egypt, Tom. I can't remember off the top of my head. But Mr. Fayed thought that they were attacking him and they were trying to get to him via Dodi and Diana. And also remember, it might have been Jordan, Alan, Egypt or Jordan. But I want you to remember this because everybody's forgotten it. Just before Diana was murdered, she had a flotilla of the press go out to the Jonquil, Mr. Fayed's yacht. And she sat there and said to them, and this has been recorded as fact. Diana told the press, I'm about to give you a story that's going to take every other story off the front page of every newspaper around the world. That's fact, because she said it. And the mainstream media reported it. That was on the Thursday. So they reported it in all the newspapers on the Friday. She was dead Saturday night. So what was the story? Marrying Dodi? That was in the pipeline. Pregnant to Dodi? I'll let you do your research because the internet has been sanitized. But I'm telling you, how many other broadcasters are telling you what I've just told you? That Diana told a flotilla of press that went out to the Jonquil, which was Mr. Fayed's personal yacht, I'm going to give you a story that's going to take every other story off the front page of every newspaper around the world. She was dead before she could tell them. So Mr. Fayed was obviously very concerned. That's why the men had machine guns on the top of Harrods. That's fact, because I've seen it with my own eyes and there's no need for me to lie to you. I've told you what Diana said. I've told you what was going on. So Mr. Fayed was very scared and very worried. And I can also tell you, when Diana and Dodi died, I can tell you, because I was walking around. There's a tube station not far from Harrods, or almost next to it. You could get off the tube station, and the queues to sign the books of commemoration were huge. You could stand in those queues for hours and hours and hours and hours on end before you could get to the book to sign it. And every single day that week, I had to pass those queues. And there was more than one book of remembrance, because the office that I worked in was directly over the road from Harrods. So that's all fact. Was it Anwar Sadat? I'm not sure. Do you think Henri Paul was drunk? Absolutely not, Kathy. Absolutely not. Do you want to know why I can say that without fear of equivocation in any way, shape or form? Because the way they conducted the test, John Charles Jimenez, no, that's not Martin, no. The reason why I know that as fact is because the way to determine that accurately is you have to go in through the eyeball to conduct the test. And did they go in through the eyeball? Did they, bollocks? And they're telling me and you and everybody else he was drunk. My hairy backside. Even the staff, Fayed staff, were like, no, he didn't drink, he didn't. But it fitted the narrative. I mean, we can go down this and do a deeper dive around Diana on another live, because I want to keep this on Fayed for the moment. So I will talk to you about what I know about Diana, and I'll actually post you the photograph of Diana still alive in the car. And that was sanitized from the internet. And you're only going to get that if you stay here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. So Fayed, all of these, as I said at the beginning of this live, and I'll try to kind of wind things up and tighten things up before we finish in 15 minutes or so. Why now? My personal opinion, and I'm allowed it. Who are these two barristers? Who are these two barristers? What are they doing? Now, I will reference, remember, Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, where the 500 sub-postmasters took the post office to court and won 48 million, but the legal teams got 32 million. So the 500 were only left 16 million. Vixtech says, it's interesting that the BBC is calling out Fayed. Yeah. Have you noticed which story has suddenly disappeared from all the press? And it's a BBC Panorama documentary, a 90-minute documentary, which I have watched. Hugh Edwards. It's disappeared. That filth, Edwards. The pervert. It suddenly died. And I keep telling you, the way to look at things is this. On a Friday, they will release something, sometimes about tea time, they'll release it so that it dies by Monday morning. The Edwards story's gone. It's done. Finished. Oh, that's a bit convenient, do you not think? And I know Starmer was head of the CPS when Savile's file went across his desk and went into file 13, into the bin. And he was also head of the CPS when the Hugh Edwards, not Hugh Edwards, Fayed file was going across his desk. Now, he took over the CPS, was head of the CPS in May 2008. They're trying to do a dance around the dates to try and make it look as if Sir Keir Starmer wasn't head of the CPS when Mohamed Fayed's file went across his desk. But it went across twice, not just 2008. So they're trying to muddy the waters. They're trying to make things difficult. So and this is proof. If proof was ever needed, if it becomes. If CM training, yes, please. I mean, you've got my email address. Please get in contact with me because it's the only way that I can contact anyone for the moment for the next week or so. So I know for shit sure that if they're trying to confuse you around dates and times and places and distract you from the story and go, no, couldn't have been. That's how you know they're at it. That's how you know you're getting to the truth. Because they're scared shitless that you're going to get through them. They're scared shitless that you're going to work them out. Savile going across Starmer's desk. File 13, NFA. No further action. Same with Fayed. Now, I know that the king of the sex parties, the PR. So the way that the media work is you go, oh, we've got him. And the other person goes, well, actually, if you do that, then that won't be great. But I can offer you this story. It's Katie Webster. No, it hasn't, Adrian. There are people trying to bring other charges. Okay, I'll get to that in a second, Katie. So you've got Max Clifford, dead now, so I can say anything that I want. Oh, Max Clifford, he knows where the bodies are buried. So he knows a massive TV star, massive, mahoosive, doesn't get any better, doesn't get any bigger. And he was the biggest contributor to Jonathan King's defence fund when Jonathan King was taken to court for banging rent boys. Hello, Jonathan. Who would that be? You can ask, but I can't possibly tell you. because they're very wealthy. But they were the biggest contributor to Jonathan King's defence fund when he was in court for banging rent boys. Fact. So Max Clifford, what he would do is if, like, I don't know, somebody in a boy band, and it would affect their career because they were gay. I mean, nobody cares about whether somebody's gay or not, what their sexual predilection is or are or was or could be. It's all about don't be messing with kids, don't be messing with animals, and don't mess with old uns. So long as it's consensual and not against the law, fill your boots. But there was one, and this is how they, and I'm giving you clues here if you can remember the stories. I'm not going to name names, I'm just giving you clues. What Max Clifford used to do is if somebody was kind of gay, I've talked lavender and I've talked beards before on these lives. Well, if you're not sure of what I'm saying, we'll keep it for another time. But so what Max Clifford used to do, he used to go to some lap dancers. Here, darling, can you say that you've shagged so-and-so? Why would I want to do that? Well, just say that you shagged him. Just say he was half decent in bed. Just say you went round to his house and had a bit of a shenanigan on his sofa, and it was all right. And we'll pay you. Can you remember the amount of stars in the 80s and 90s that suddenly had affairs with lap dancers? I'll leave that with you. Google it, you might find it. Or go through the Sun's archive or the News of the World's archive. You might find it, because those that were shagging lap dancers weren't. Fact. So he said of, I can't remember, what's the, there was a documentary made about Max Clifford, and Max started talking about stuff to do with Fayed, and he called him a randy old sod. But the makers of the documentary, and it was in the BBC documentary, they couldn't really mention Fayed because he was litigious. Martin, I know. But Clifford, the ultimate spin doctor. Look, I wish Jonathan well, because I've seen some of his stuff on YouTube, and it's very good. I want him to tell more stories, because he's got loads of them. Managing Genesis. How are you, man, Jonathan? Tell us about that. And he's done Bird for that. Court case didn't turn out the way he wanted it, I'm sure. But so long as the person has seen the error of their ways and is making retribution for what they've done, then just leave them alone. It's hard enough making stuff for YouTube than anybody else having a go. But I've just given you a fact. I've not named any names. It's for you to do your research. It won't be too difficult to get them, by the way. So Fayed, randy old sod, to quote Max Clifford, I get that. But as I said to you previously, if somebody fancies having a dance, I'm not going to fuck about. Now, Mr. Fayed was always a gentleman with me because I didn't about. And he knew I was loyal to him. He didn't. No, there's nothing wrong with saying that Jonathan King is interesting. You used to listen to him. Good on him. He's got loads of stories and some fabulous stories. I mean, I know that the law is litigation is different now in 2024, but I'm sure Jonathan in time will tell you some wonderful stories. Go and check him out on YouTube. And Mr. Fayed in the 90s, when I was around him, was very litigious. So I was aware of, and again, I talked about this building that was opposite Harrods. Harrods was the honey pot, but he had, was it the Spectator he had, the magazine? No, it was Punch. So Mr. Fayed bought the magazine Punch, the satirical magazine Punch, and was obviously getting stuff out in Punch. He had Liberty 963. He had Andrew Neil. Andrew Neil was an advisor to Fayed. And I'd been told, whether this is true or not, but I had no reason to doubt this, Andrew Neil was on a 150 grand retainer by Mr. Fayed just to give him advice about the press. Now, Andrew had been editor of the Times. He was a really well-known and revered editor, press spokesperson. So Mr. Fayed had him on a retainer. He lived in France at the time. What was the dark-haired girl that he was seen out and about on town with? It was about that time. And so Mr. Fayed didn't, I mean, everybody, I could tell you the stories about the Viagra. It was, and remember this is the reason why I'm asking about why now. Because Mr. Fayed was in his 70s and 80s when they're alleging that he was doing what he was. I mean, how many men do you know, apart from Charlie Chaplin, who fathered a child at 84, and Scotty from Starship Enterprise? Most blokes have kind of retired from, sword play, being a swordsman in the 70s and 80s. But he was like a child in a sweet shop, pun intended, with Viagra. He would give it to anybody who wanted it, anybody. And I went down to see a person connected with Fulham Football Club. And I won't go into too much detail, but I walked into an office I was just on the floor, went to see him, how's things going? And he said, I've just had the chairman in. Oh, right, okay. Yeah. He's left me some Viagra. And I literally fell off my chair, laughing my head off. He said, well, what? I mean, this guy was early 30s. He was seeing a ballerina at the time. So he didn't need the blue pills. And he's like, I don't know. What's he giving me these for? I said, it's just him. I mean, this was about 97. So 97, Viagra had just been discovered to do what? Because they thought it was a heart attack drug or something, didn't they? Radio Viagra. Would have got the antenna up. So he loved it. He loved it. He saw people's reactions because, yes, he was a character. Yes, he did what he did. And no, I'm not condoning anything that he may have done illegally. And I agree with you, Jane. Maybe you and I need to have a conversation away from YouTube, Gene, just to see what's what, really. Alan, yeah, they just gave you a stiff neck. So we had a giggle about it. It was just the chairman. It was just, it was just Mohamed. It was just Mr. Fayed. And we all took it in the spirit that it was meant. Now, whether he had a dark side or not, that's not for me to comment, because I had no experience of that. But I had experience of him working in Harrods. I am very well aware that there were prostitutes, hookers, whatever you want to call them, working within Harrods, mostly on the perfumery, the perfume desk where or the beautician things where some of the Arabs would come over to London and stay in London because they love Western women. They love a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman. That's just them. But they used to come to the perfume counter at Harrods and go, I'll have one of them, 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 one of them. Spend thousands and thousands. And oh, by the way, can you have that delivered to my room or my suite or my hotel or my country pile, please? It was well known that there were hookers working in Harrods. Well known. But that's not come out in the BBC documentary. I wonder why. Because it was reported in the news of the world. Well, I wonder why. No, because they want Fayed. And have you noticed how it's suddenly the barristers who stand to make money out of this are trying to align Fayed with Savile and Epstein and Weinstein? Absolutely not. He's not another Epstein. He was not brokering children for high-powered political and industrial people. No, he wasn't. Is he the same as Weinstein? Possibly, but he's not Savile and he's not Epstein. Savile, I will reiterate, Savile raped an 8-year-old girl on BBC property. Now, the BBC need to start looking at themselves, because this was put in a report by a very senior legal eagle. And when the BBC did this, was it U-Tree, when they had this investigation into Savile, the only thing that they came out with was Tony Blackburn kissed a 16-year-old girl sometime in the 60s. And the BBC said nothing about Jimmy Savile raping an 8-year-old girl on BBC property. Raped. 8-year-old girl. Fact. And these scum-sucking pond life are now doing a hatchet piece on Mohamed Fayed, and the barristers are trying to align him with Savile. Oh, here, Foxtrot Oscar, mate. For whatever Fayed did. And have you noticed how, there's 150 women have come forward now? Savile, it was over 500, and they stopped counting at 500, and the BBC didn't do anything about Savile raping an 8-year-old child on BBC property. No. Fayed was fired. He had his faults. And the question has to be asked. If these women have been to the police and the police said NFA, it's going across the CPS desk, and it goes into file 13. Let's have a look at who was the head of the CPS at that time. There'll be some dancing going on. Absolutely. And if it was Starmer, well, I'm going to make a prediction about him in a moment, and you need to hear this. Because I know who Keir Starmer is too. To you, Keir Starmer again. Here, Foxtrot Oscar, mate. You've been used. Chump. There are other things that, I've been literally working without script for 2 hours. So I'm going to get to Starmer and I'm going to make this prediction. So that's Fayed. And I'll look at the reportage. The story's dead now. The story's dead. There will be other women that come forward. For multi-billionaire Mohamed Fayed's estate. His son's come out today and said, well, they're just after money. My dad's dead. Why have they come forward this time? At this point? And Harrods are paying some of the women off and making them sign NDA, non-disclosure agreements. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the Spondulics. It's all about the greenbacks. It's all about the money. And when you've got the legal eagles, the barristers, getting their claws in, I wouldn't trust anyone in the legal profession as far as I can spit them. Barristers? Oh, we've just opened up a new money-making exercise. So maybe these two barristers can tell us how much Harrods are giving. How much are the barristers making? Cough. Tell us, because we want to know. Because that's the story. He's barely dead in the ground. Mohamed Fayed died August 2023. And a year later, 150 women come out of the woodwork going, yeah, me. Sound like a bloody opera singer warming up. Me. Why didn't they come forward? And there are some people in this action that kept a whole load of evidence. Why would they do that if they were biding their time, if they weren't biding their time? So let's get to Starmer. I'm not a fan. I've seen the three of them, Reeves, Rayner and Starmer, make their way to the Labour Party conference today looking like a bag of shite. Have you seen the clothes that they've got on? Oh, I wonder why is that? Have you seen the jacket that Starmer's wearing? He's obviously nicked that off a bum on the street. It's about 6 inches too long in the sleeves. It's baggy. It looks shite. Why would you do that when you're spunking 20 grand on suits, Sakia, and 2 grand on your glasses? And there's Angela Rayner, Ginger Growler. Hang on a second. Have you seen what she wears and how badly fitting it is? But you know the reason why Reeves and Rayner have come out and said, we're not going to accept any more money when they weren't even in the frame? Because the same as Sunak and Starmer when Johnson was ousted from number 10. They both came out and went, oh yeah, yeah, I'd be here. It was a work do. Both of them pictured having a beer. Sakia, lockdown beer drinker. Because then it absolves them of any guilt. So Rayner and Reeves have been absolved of any guilt because they've coughed and said, yeah, libel grifters. So this was the channel, and I say this to you and I reiterate this to you. I bring you information that you don't get anywhere else. Please tell, I know that sometimes, I've done 2 hours tonight. I was barely going to do half an hour. That was my word. This channel told you that Labour used Sir Keir Starmer to get into power. And I told you what was going to happen before the general election happened. I told you that Starmer was a dead man walking, politically and metaphorically, was walking backwards into obscurity. But he was like, oh, we're going to change, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, we're going to do the other. Starmer's gone. He's finished. He's done. And do you want to know why? And nobody else will tell you this. And I have to thank those around me for just giving me the right information. They know who they are. They've been around me for a long, long time. And anything they tell me, I trust implicitly because they've never been wrong. Starmer's gone. He's gone. They're going to put Ginger Growler in as Prime Minister. Now be aware that she's also a WEF puppet. Starmer, WEF puppet. The WEF are not stupid, and neither are the communists. So, what's going to happen? I'll tell you this. Just keep an eye on it, because it'll come to fruition. I told you about the Black Swan. If Donald Trump had his head shot off, that would have been the Black Swan event that I'd been predicting. We've still got a few months to go. We've still got the American election to go. And I told you this in 2023 when nobody else was talking about it. I told you about Starmer not staying as Prime Minister before the election. And what am I saying now? Local elections are in 2025. Starmer's gone before then because the Labour Party cannot afford for Labour to implode before the local elections. They need to keep hold of their local councils. May 2025 is gone. Now, whether it's before Christmas, whether it's 2024, whether it's just before or after the budget and what they're going to do to me and you in the budget, Andy Burnham will out her after Christmas, a hard restart. The knives are being sharpened. Starmer's done. He's finished. He's gone. It's just when, not if. And I'm being told it has to happen before the May local elections in 2025. So he might get 6 months. I mean, I didn't think he would get past the budget. So we can all speculate as to when, but it is going to happen. So the final piece that I want to tell you about is P. Diddy. Oi, 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 oi. Nearly 800 vibrators in his house. Over 1,000 bottles of lube in his house. And you know who was pictured with him and who has been to his parties. Ginger Sphericals. You know who I'm talking about. I'm going to find the picture and I'm going to post it on X, because the camera never lies. Des Ashton, the world is in pain. I completely agree with you, Des. I know, but there's no way to get around this. I mean, I told you nearly a year ago about P. Diddy and what was going on. I told you about what he did to Bieber. So we're ahead of the curve with everything. I just don't song and dance about it. I let you find it and do your own. Poor Justin Bieber. But P. Diddy, tell me if I'm still coming through to you, because it's been, I don't think it's the 77th. So I will post the picture on X. That is going to be sanitized quicker than you can say, "Fuck me, was it Prince Harry?" My name's Adrian Allen. Please tell everybody that you know what we do here. Oh, Jay-Z, I agree. Never mind Jay-Z, they're all Oprah, all of it. The whole of Hollywood. 14-year-old Bieber. I'll let you do your research because it's out there. And Usher. So I just tried to bring you, because just to reiterate what I've just said, William told Harry to be careful, and the pictures of Harry with Diddy were all over the press. Prince William, tried to warn him. And this Diddy is trying to arrange a plea deal. It could bring Hollywood down. 1,000 bottles of lube. Jesus, what on earth were they doing? These freak-offs. So thank you for being here this evening. There wasn't going to be a live. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope that you feel you've had some value from this tonight. I hope that I've brought you new things and you hadn't nearly joined the dots. But it's not for me to do that. I can bring you stuff, but it's for you. And as I say at the end of most of my lives nowadays, we have to bring our humanity, because as Des Ashton said, the world's in pain. We have to stay together. Let these evil entities eat themselves and each other, and let's hopefully have a world where evil does not direct everything. I'm not going to get all tree hugging hippie shite and turn into Jerry Springer. Diddy gay? Bloody hell, Dale. They haven't mentioned J-Lo yet. Beard. Have you not worked out why J-Lo and what's-his-face suddenly got divorced about a month ago? They knew what was coming. We can't let evil win. Thank you, Nikki. But every Sunday and every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, we come together in the body of the Kirk just to see what's going on in the world and try to make some sense of it. And if I've helped you make some sense of this world that we inhabit, which is mad and ridiculous sometimes, then that means everything to me. Look after yourself, look after your family, be well, and we'll have another live Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Thank you for being there. Really appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed it. See you Wednesday at 8.